In today's devotion, I'd like to focus our time in Acts chapter 11, verses 19 through 30. And this passage records the final step of the Gospels beginning to be proclaimed to the Gentiles, specifically the formation of a Gentile church in the city of Antioch in Syria. Now, apparently, so many people came to Christ in Antioch that the locals coined a new name for Christ's followers. And in Antioch, the disciples were first called Christians. We see this in verse 26. And this nickname probably came from the Gentile townspeople because believers would have been so confident to describe themselves with a term built on the name of Christ. Besides, they already had several long-used self-designations such as the disciples, the saints, the believers, and even the brethren. Also, the Jews would never have named them Christians because Christ is the Greek word for Messiah. So to call them Christians, followers of the Messiah, would have been very unthinkable for them. The people of Antioch observed this vibrant spiritual movement, though to them it appeared narrow-minded and suspicious. Seeking a new term to describe it, they took the Greek name for Messiah and added the Latin suffix, producing a hybrid word we pronounce today in the English language as, you're right, Christian. The name was wonderfully true, though also derogatory and costly. See, we live in a time when the term Christian has become one of the vaguest names in the English language. During the British colonial era, it became synonymous with quote-unquote Englishmen in India. It did not make any difference how godly or perverted the person was. Some people think that everyone who isn't a Jew or Muslim is simply just a Christian. A man by the name of Dr. Harry Ironside once handed a gospel booklet to a man on a train, and the man turned to him and asked, "What did you give me that book for?" Dr. Ironside replied, "Well, I thought you might be interested. And may I ask, are you a Christian?" Well, he replied indignantly, of course, "Well, take a good look at me. Do I look like a Jew or a Chinaman?" "Well, you look like an American." "Then," he responded, "there's your answer." Listen, even today, many people are willing to say, "I am a Christian," but would shy away from saying they're believers or disciples. Basically, they are cultural Christians who have not experienced a true saving commitment to Jesus. Antioch was situated on the Orontes River, around 300 miles north of Jerusalem and 20 miles east of the Mediterranean. And during the first century, it was the third largest city in the world, behind Rome and Alexandria. It was basically the melting pot for at least 5 cultures. We see the Greeks, the Romans, Semitic, Arabic, and Persian. The Jews made up 1/7 of the city's population and had legal sanction to follow their own laws and their own neighborhoods. Antioch was famous for its chariot racing and for its deliberate pursuit of pleasure, basically Las Vegas on the Orontes. Antioch was most famous for its worship of Daphne, whose temple stood 5 miles outside town. Apollos' famous pursuit of Daphne there was reenacted night and day by the men of the city and by the priestesses who were basically ritual prostitutes. Throughout the world, the morals of Daphne was a euphemism for depravity. And amazingly, it was in this city, with all its sensuality and immorality, that the disciples were first called Christians. Antioch was also the birthplace of foreign missions. We see this in chapter 13, verse 2. And it had the greatest preachers in the first century alone. We see Barnabas, Paul, and Peter. And what we can see here is God's light can shine in the darkest of places. The city of Antioch could not fit this new people in any other category, so a new name was born. And perhaps there was a little bit of joking and mocking edge to the nickname, maybe even a bit of rage and anger, because these people were such a contradiction to the culture of Antioch. The new term was a mongrel name, part Greek and part Latin, but it said it all. Christians, followers of Christ. Christ was so much on these believers' lips. They lived so much like Christ that no other name would do. Christian is a wonderful name, a name of which we should seek to live up to. Alexander the Great once learned that in his army was a namesake, another Alexander, who was a notorious coward. Alexander the Great, who conquered the world when he was just 23, called the soldier before him and said, "Is your name Alexander? And have you been named for me?" The trembling coward said, "Yes, sir, my name is Alexander, and I was named for you." The great general said to him, "Then either be brave or change your name." Now, fortunately, Jesus does not say that to us, but he does exhort us to be who we are, to live out our calling in faithful, obedient service. Our prayer today is, Lord, help us to be a loyal, brave, committed follower. Help us to be a people who refuse to turn back, who dare to stand firm and to make your name known to everyone around us, who desire, with your enabling, to shine the light of the gospel into a dark world, winning others to you.